Hello, BookTube. All right, we're back for part 3 of questions here. Let's see here. We stopped with Thomas R.P., so we're moving on to Doom Antidote. Do you have a favorite novel in the second person, or one that you would recommend? I don't think I do. I can remember some, but a favorite novel in the second person? No, I don't think I do. Oh, what a weird question to start with. All right, Alan says, would love to get your thoughts on the sadly departed Clive James. Which of his books do you recommend? He's great. He was a great practitioner of my own profession, of literary journalism, what we'll call literary journalism. Not literary criticism, but literary journalism, where he writes about books. He was also great about TV, but I particularly appreciate him when it comes to books. And he has a big collection, Cultural Amnesia. Cultural Amnesia is fantastic. If it doesn't give you a taste for Clive James, if you finish that book and you don't think, I want to read everything this author's ever written, especially book-related, then he's not on your wavelength, but I bet you will. Cultural Amnesia is a winner of a book. I miss him. I miss his voice. Let's see here. Tomorrow's Classics has a bunch of questions. Let's see. Number 1, what is your favorite Georgette Heyer novel? Probably Regency Buck, but there are plenty of other. It's hard to tell. Probably whatever book of hers I'm reading at the moment would be my favorite. Number 2 is, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Zack Snyder cut of Justice League? I don't think it's the Messiah. I don't think it's the coming of Jesus. I know the neck-bearded fanboys on YouTube are all saying this is a cultural victory for us. The NPC simp SJWs didn't want us to get this director's cut, but we made enough of a stink so that now the studio is releasing it and funneling money into it. So we win and you lose. And it's become part of the culture war. That makes it a little tiresome on its own. But a lot of those neck-bearded fanboys have come forward and said, well, this is going to be a whole new and different movie. I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to be 99% the same, with a few little changes here and there. I don't think Zack Snyder had a whole different cut of Justice League done when he was pulled off the movie. So I'm not expecting much in the way of it. I'm expecting an absolute tsunami of YouTube commentary on it, but what are you going to do? Then question number 3 is, I noticed a troll on one of your videos the other day. Yes, indeed, and on everybody else's. We all need to be mindful of that. What has been your worst interaction with a troll? Well, I try not to interact with them, right? Because that's a victory for them. That means they win. Not a negative commentator is something different, where someone says, boy, oh boy, you know, the thing you said about my favorite author really ticked me off. Where do you get off saying such a thing about an author I really love? That I actually don't object to. And often, now that I leave my email on every video, often those comments will lead to very productive conversations and friendships via email. Because I'm perfectly willing to admit that I can come off as a bit of a know-it-all, even though I'm a sexy 28-year-old. Oh, everything's disappeared again. Well, unfortunately, I'm in the middle of no. It's everything just. Okay, I don't know what's going on here, and I don't know how to stop that from happening, but I was in the middle of a peroration anyway. The negative commentators I don't mind so much, provided they're not personally insulting. If you're personally insulting, I predate the internet. I know personal insults are the lingua franca of the internet, but I predate the internet. If you personally insult me, you've ended our conversation. And I think that's a mistake. I think you would enjoy a lifelong conversation with me. I think it's a mistake to do that, but I'm not going to forget. It's not like I'm going to just move on. Okay, you got the personal insult out of your system, now we'll just move on. No. But fortunately, none of you people, almost none of you, even think to do that. But an actual troll, not a negative commentator, but an actual troll, someone who just, all they want to do is get a reaction. That's all they want to do. With them, any interaction with them is a victory for them. So you must not. The most you must do is just block them from your channel, and do it without remorse, do it without hesitation. I don't care if you have, 30 subscribers and you barely get any comments. If you get a troll, it's not worth having a troll. Just get rid of it. I have on this channel a couple of dedicated trolls, insane people who are badly psychologically damaged, an active danger to themselves and others, who in the beginning of my channel 4 years ago, just started instantly hitting dislike on every video I uploaded instantly, as soon as they saw it. So not watching it, not waiting for something they actually dislike, just hitting dislike on every video. There were 2 such people, and each of them had 2 accounts. And there would be at least 2 dislikes on every video immediately, instantly, long before you could have listened to anything. And I figured out how to disable the like function on my videos, because I didn't want, and I did that instantly. I do that on every video because I don't want trolls to see that. I don't want them to see their handiwork. I don't want them to see any hint that what they've done has mattered. And one of the trolls in question is a married couple, and they have left their children at school unattended. Honey, you were supposed to go and pick them up at 3. I can't get there. I'm at work, and they're waiting. They texted me that they're waiting, and the husband's response was, yeah, I just need an extra minute because I'm switching between YouTube accounts to add dislikes to this guy's videos while your children are waiting out in the sleet in front of their school. That is a severe mental dysfunction. You are severely mentally handicapped and a danger to yourself and others. You need intense, in-house, involuntary psychological treatment. And so I disabled the like function on my videos so that those people couldn't see a handiwork of their dislikes. And then I figured, okay, well, you'll know, these people, you'll know that I know that you're disliking every video, because when I'm posting a video, I'll be able to see it. But you won't be able to see it, and no one else will be able to see it, so it's still wasted effort on your part. And then YouTube changed the back end of videos of the YouTube studio so that now I can't even see those dislikes. I would have to go hunting for them. They're not immediately on my backstage page. And I bet they still happen. So these people, they're expending energy every day to dislike every single thing I post, even though no one will ever see it or know it. Ever. Tell me a better definition of insane than that. There isn't one. But that is one species. And another species of troll is the kind that we're all getting on YouTube now. Not just BookTube. All of YouTube is getting. Do you want to come back in here, baby? There you go. All of YouTube is now getting a very nefarious, automated troll thing that is happening that is very, very important. It's important that this has disappeared completely. What on earth is going on with these questions? I swear. Well, it's not the question's fault, but the technology is acting up, and I don't know why. Let me continue on with my rant anyway, and maybe by the time I'm done, we'll be back to where we belong. There's a troll that's popping up on YouTube videos by the tens of thousands lately in 2020. That's very important. It's a very important thing because it's breaching two-factor authentication, and that shouldn't be possible. So that interacting with this troll, especially those of you who have small BookTube channels and maybe aren't, I'm using a different tablet here. I want to get back to where I was. Here we go. Okay. Those of you who maybe aren't familiar, don't have a lot of experience with YouTube, you want to be careful about that troll. Don't interact with it in any way because it can co-opt your account. Flag it or delete it, certainly. As far as I know, no one has reported that their accounts are in any danger by simply deleting them. But don't leave it up there because somebody else might come across it in your comments field and try to interact, and that could cost them a lot. So get rid of it from your comments section. But that's a different kind of troll. But anyway, and then on a different tablet here, thoughts on Robert Anton Wilson? Talentless. I'm afraid talentless. I know a cult figure, but still. Then we'll move on. MNIKM asks, could you please give some recommendations on the best translations of Thomas Mann and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy? I will do a translation starter kit, yes. P.S. Never heard you speak of Nabokov on your channel. What is your opinion of him? I don't particularly like him. I can't stand his fiction. His nonfiction is occasionally okay, but mostly bloated. You can definitely tell it's someone who was writing his nonfiction most of it at a point in his life where he was, where he was already being pre-venerated. I don't have him. He's one of the rare Russian authors I don't have any use for at all. John Petter asks, number one, what are some of the countries you have seen change most since you last traveled there? I know this is going to sound awful pandering, but America has changed more than any country that I have ever visited in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, in the administrations of two Republican presidents who lost the popular vote, so who were elected by 19th, 18th century arcanum of the Electoral College instead of by the people. In both those cases were disastrous and changed the nature of the country. And one of those changes is happening now. America today is unrecognizable to me from the America that I left to do a lot of my traveling. So I'm going to, as pandering as this, I'm going to say America. Then what, has it bothered you that the made-up stories don't get translated as much from other languages from some languages as opposed to others? No, I'm okay. I'm okay with all the made-up stories that I currently have. I don't need Slovakian autofiction at 800 pages, where don't you dare criticize it, because I have documents that every single word in this novel actually happened. When I have Czech autofiction and French autofiction and German autofiction, well, I don't need more of that, thanks very much. Let's see here. John Mayers says, I was wondering if you could recommend biographies of any or all of the principal characters in The Lion in Winter. For those of you who don't know, that is a play by James Goldman about King Henry II of England and his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and his sons, Richard the Lionheart, Geoffrey, and John, and Richard and John would go on to be kings. I could make recommendations on a lot of these people. Marion Mead's biography of Eleanor of Aquitaine is incredibly good. H.L. Warren's biography of Henry II is the definitive work. It can be a little dry, and it's a little bit of a big book. And Frank McGlynn, a biographer that I really like, did a combined biography of Richard and John that's really good. Everything Frank McGlynn writes is really good. But I hadn't thought of that. There's probably, there's King Louis, and there's probably a book about Alice as well. I'll have to think about that more. All the characters in The Lion in Winter. It's my favorite movie. That's why it came up, those of you who are new to the channel. Gunnar asks, what are your thoughts on John Williams's books? I like them just fine. I don't over-venerate them. They're not great. Since you are a Viking fan, and he's not referring to the sports franchise, he's referring to the Marauders, the Scandinavian Marauders. I love the Viking era. Are you familiar with Jackson Crawford's YouTube channel or his translations of Viking sagas? Doesn't ring a bell. I'll make a note of it. I'll go looking for Jackson Crawford. Gail Doherty says, of his standalone novels and excluding The Way We Live Now, which of Trollope's books would be your favorite? Probably He Knew He Was Right, but it's a slog. It's grim. Probably that. Or maybe Orley Farm, but probably it was He Knew He Was Right. Which book by an author had you previously dismissed as being hack or less surprised you by being really good? Well, I don't know about dismissing it as hack work, but I did just recently, comparatively recently for me, I dismissed Alan Moore's gigantic book, Jerusalem. I read it the first time and I didn't make anything of it at all. I thought this is just the wanderings, the semi-coherent wanderings of a guy who just wants to write his autobiography and doesn't know how to do it. And then I reread it, and it's an undertaking because it's a huge book, but I reread it and noticed a lot going on there. And when I did notice that, I felt embarrassed because I remembered that every time I've reread this author's work in comic book form, I have found that he was playing a deeper game than I originally thought. So I don't know why I didn't think that would be true with prose. Utterly ridiculous. So now I'm duly humbled, and I will probably in maybe 2025, if the world is still around and I'm still around, I might reread Jerusalem. I might reread it even sooner than then and try it again. I don't know why I thought that. I don't know why I wrote off the first reading when I have reread Watchmen with Prophet many, many times. So that would be a recent example. Let's see here. REP, how are we doing for time? We're fine. REP says, could you tell me how I can improve my reading speed? Does running the finger along the lines when reading work for you? Or only removing subvocalizing? Well, running the finger underneath the lines, is that a method that people use? I'm afraid my answer is going to be the same here. There are only two real ways to improve your reading speed and still read what you're reading. One is to remove subvocalizing, and that's frustrating because a lot of people have been doing that their whole lives. It's a deep-grained habit, but you can remove a bad habit. It feels frustrating at first, but you can eventually make a new habit. You can do it. 2 weeks of trying will do it. And the other is something that people in the 21st century don't want to hear about, and that is you have to concentrate on what you're doing. The other way to improve your reading speed is to do nothing but read when you're reading. if you are so-called reading, but you're also dipping a cookie in milk, or you have a particular drink, or you've got people coming and going, or you've got your phone on and you're answering every notification, don't expect to read fast if that's the case. Concentrate on it completely and stop self-vocalizing, and your reading will go up, I guarantee. But those are hard to do. They take practice. PHXSNS1 says, what do you think of silent comedies like those of Chaplin, Keaton, Lloyd, etc.? I like them just fine. I don't fetishize them the way hipsters do. Hipsters and hipsters tend to say, well, you know, Hollywood was doing just fine until 1920, and then it went all downhill. That's sort of, you know, oh, it's got to be vinyl attitude. I kind of lose patience with it. And do you like grits? I do indeed. Ryan Clark asks, number one, thoughts on Wallace Stevens? I like him fine. I like his, predictably, I like his, the big, was it Vintage that made a big volume of his nonfiction? I particularly like that. Or maybe I'm thinking of Auden. No, I am thinking of Auden. Stevens is just the poetry that I know of, and I like him fine. I don't love him. I like him fine. Question number 2, hello Bean. Do you want to see your fans? Somebody wants to know why I'm making so many videos today, don't you? Oh, sorry. Am I not paying enough attention to you? Oh, sorry, Bean. Let's see here. I'm talking to my imaginary friends on BookTube. You've seen me do this before. Wow. Don't tell me this is acting up too. Good Lord. Good Lord. Okay, sorry. I'm not going to write these things out longhand. That would take 5 days to do. So I'm relying on tablets. Now, one tablet just died on me. Just plain died on me. And this other one has lost my place. It went horizontal and then it lost my place. So we're going to go back to where we were. This is slowing things down, I know, but there's nothing I can do about it. Do you like grits? There we go. Okay, so Wallace Stevens, I like him. I like him just fine. Favorite book of his? I don't have a favorite Wallace Stevens book. Question number 2, favorite work by Bach? Boy, oh boy, the oboe concertos, probably the oboe work. But maybe it depends on the performer and the moment. And question number 3, since you are entertained by conspiracy theories, it's true, I am. What are your thoughts on the Goddard family disappearance? Is this a rabbit hole I should go down? I don't know this. I don't think I do. I'll make a note of it. I'll go and look. I don't have any thoughts on it at the moment. Rambling Raconteur asks, what age were you when you learned to sail? I was very young. What is your favorite body of water to sail in? The Atlantic, in between Boston and Nantucket. But maybe also the Florida Keys. Let's see here. Winifred Lee says, let's see here, 3 questions. Number 1, have you ever had a mini dachshund or any fond memories with them? I've never owned a mini dachshund as a dog of my own, but I've met and known many of them. They're wonderful. They're just wonderful. Question number 2, what do you find most interesting about Virginia Woolf? The way she writes about certain themes, the way she persevered through mental hardships, the way she writes, her prose, of course. I don't know anything else. I just know the prose, and I love it. I love the way she's never satisfied. She digs deep into even the most shallow subjects. And question number 3, 3 words to describe Virginia Woolf. I have no idea. A human? A mammal? A woman? I have no idea. I don't have any idea. Let's see here. Laura Wincello, what makes beagles such great dogs? I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you. Even after all this time, it is still strange to me that I don't live with beagles. I don't have a crowd of beagles. I have one dog, and she's not a beagle. That is so strange, even now. And why do you think you'd never have a schnauzer? Well, for the longest time, for 170,000 years, I thought I would only have beagles. I never thought I'd have any other kind of dog. I just went from litter to litter, from littermate to littermate, cousin to cousin, from breeder to breeder, from friend to friend. For the longest time, I never thought that at all. And then I lost the best friend I've ever had, and that broke that strain. That broke that string for me completely. Although there have been many times where I thought maybe it isn't complete. I thought, you know, maybe it's just fate that you will have a beagle again, or many beagles again. That's one of the main reasons I never thought I'd have a schnauzer. Once upon a time, a long time ago, when I had a bunch of beagles, I was living with me Saint Edma in a great big archy house. And one day, I opened the front door, and there was a tiny little miniature Schnauzer puppy just sitting there on the front step. And he marched into the house, started ordering things around, started bossing us around, telling us what to do, licking our faces. Very friendly, but very bossy. Very familiar pattern. I took a few pictures of him. But then we found the owner that day. We found the owner within an hour or two. My sainted Ma and I were both charmed by the little guy. So I did have a little bit of experience, but I had no idea that I would come around to having one of my own. Let's see here. Michelangelo Yoon says, what works of pastoral literature would you recommend? Does The Overstory count by Richard Powers? I don't know if it does or not. I probably, in a way, it does. I don't know that I have any great favorites in explicitly pastoral literature, but surely The Overstory counts. Anyway, let's see here. Angus Reeves. Oh, we did him already. Spike Milligan. Okay. Let's see here. Housekeeping asks favorite short story collections. I have hundreds of them. And favorite short story writers. I have hundreds of them. I'll have to make a series of videos on short stories, or maybe a regular feature where I look at a short story writer every week or every month. That'd be a lot of fun. A lot of you have asked what I think of short stories. How are we doing for time? We're all right. We'll keep going a little more. Trip asks, number one, what feelings / atmosphere can poetry in the Romantic languages, Spanish, Italian, etc., thanks, convey that are off limits to the Germanic languages? None. None. And question number two, you famously predicted the coronavirus catastrophe months before it happened. I don't know about that. People ask me, I think in a Q&A, people ask me what catastrophes do you foresee happening, and one of the things I mentioned was a worldwide pandemic, but that was no great feat. That was easy to see coming, because bushmeat, of the bushmeat trade, as long as humans are now eating raw anything wild they can find, they're going to be subject to all sorts of crossover viruses they didn't encounter before, unless you're referring to early in the coronavirus story, when it was still located in China, when it was still a very specific, small story. And there were many videos on this channel where I was talking about that. I was going through the news, going through the Sunday newspaper, for instance, and other times where I was saying, this is really, really serious. The indications about this thing coming out of China is that you can spread it asymptomatically. In other words, you can be infecting people without having any sense that you yourself are sick, which is going to make it impossible to deal with, impossible to contain. Because you don't even know to take precautions, if that's true. I remember saying that way back in January and February, and I got quite a bit of sass from a lot of you saying, are you making a mountain out of a molehill? This is nothing. But I don't know about predicting. What other catastrophe do you see coming? Oh my God. And then relatedly, thoughts on the 2020 election. Oh my, how much time do you have? The easiest catastrophe to see coming right now is that America is about to embark on hurricane season, and the ocean, the waters that feed hurricanes have been warmer this season than any other on recorded history, and that it's only a matter of time until that combination, that warm surface waters are what hurricanes feed on, and it's only a matter of time until that combination causes a massively horrible hurricane season. We had one a couple of years ago. We could easily have one this year. And it might be a lot harder to ignore. The Trump administration ignored a massive hurricane that devastated the island of Puerto Rico, because don't believe any Trump supporters that tell you otherwise, because until that storm hit, Trump did not know that Puerto Rico was part of the United States, and acted like it wasn't even after he knew that, because in his opinion, anything that he didn't know stays that way. And he gets angry at the people who teach him new things rather than learning them. So he still sort of in his mind considered that Puerto Rico isn't really the United States. But a really bad hurricane season, especially an anomalous one, could send a major hurricane further east, further north. A Category 4 hurricane making landfall in New York, well, we saw something of what that would be like, and it would be pretty bad. Hurricane 5, a Category 5 hurricane striking the mid-Atlantic region, somewhere in like Philadelphia, that could happen this season, absolutely, and I of course dread that. But the thoughts on the 2020 election, I think, are pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear. I think Donald Trump is making pretty clear what he's going to do in November. He's going to call anything other than a victory for himself an illegitimate election. And America has never faced that before. We've never faced a rogue second president. A second guy out there claiming to be president, saying they didn't beat me, I am actually president. It'd be one thing if that person were in a straitjacket in a padded cell somewhere, but for that person to have the unflinching worship, not loyalty, but religious worship of a third of the country, the country has never faced that before. Pundits say that the one sure way to avoid that is for Trump to lose in a landslide, for him to lose so massively that even his religious acolytes say, well, he did lose. We wish he hadn't, but he did lose. First of all, I don't think it's possible mathematically, electorally anymore, for there to be such a landslide. So I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it would be true. I think even if it did happen, his acolytes would still say, no, he is our president forever. We're not going to obey the laws of this new president. We're not going to pay taxes to this new president. We're going to shoot up federal installations if they put a picture of someone other than Donald Trump up as the current president. Something like that. Something like that could happen if the figure involved, the ex-president, is fomenting it. And Donald Trump will. He's made it clear that he's going to call the 2020 election illegitimate unless he wins. He's still calling the 2016 election illegitimate, and he won that. And so I think what we are coming towards in 2020, in the presidential election, is for the first time in American history, we make a clarion call in America of the peaceful transition of power. That one outgoing administration hands over power peacefully to the incoming administration, no matter whether or not they're enemies politically. And in 2020, I think for the first time, we will see that not happen. And I have no idea what will happen if that is true. No one does. No historian, no analyst of any kind. It's never happened before. And that would be really bad. And it wouldn't be really bad just for the United States. I would caution the rest of the world. I know most of the rest of the world, they're laughing at America, and those of you who don't live in America are being very sympathetic to your American booktube friends, and I really appreciate that. But I might point out, an America that is thrown into military chaos, there won't be any place in the world that will be safe from such a thing. That's the amount of power that we're talking about. We shall see. I anticipate the absolute worst. There is no possible way that Donald Trump is going to say, I concede. He's not going to be able to do that. So I don't know what's coming for the 2020 election. No idea. And Tripp has a third question. Do you believe in free will? Why or why not? Yes, I believe in free will. The only reason that you would not is if you've watched a little too much stupid philosophy, which is kind of a redundancy because it's all stupid. Brett Zakari says, did you ever meet Andre Dubus? No. Do you like his short stories? Not particularly. Any favorites? No, I don't have one. They're kind of dumb. They're kind of dull. Alex Perez asks, I love the English Civil War and wonder if you are familiar with the Econ Basilicae of Charles I or Lord Clarendon's History of the Rebellion. You're wondering if I'm familiar with the writings of Charles I or Lord Clarendon. You're wondering if I'm familiar with those works. I am. Do you have any thoughts on them? I have a lot of thoughts on them. Yeah, I think Clarendon makes good reading. I wish there were a popular edition of him, even an abridgment. I wish there were, that I could just recommend to people to just go to your bookstore and buy. Although probably you can get all of him free, right, at Project Gutenberg and elsewhere. I find these two works fascinating given their historical context. Clarendon fascinates me endlessly. I think his work is just amazing. Let's see here. Okay, I copied your question twice, but at least this tablet's holding up. Michael Moore says, how many countries are you aware of that your subscribers come from? I don't know. Even after all this time, I'm not really a good hand at analyzing my own analytics, so I don't know. But just from emails and comments, quite a few countries, and that's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. I leave my email on every video. I encourage you all to email me, and a lot of you do. Increasing numbers of you do, especially once you realize that it's not a gimmick. It's not leading you to a merch store. It's not me selling your information or anything like that. It's just that I'm a talkative old coot. I like hearing from you people. And so quite a few of you do that. And it's all over the place, which I really like. I wonder if I am watched in China. Anywhere. By any means in China. I wonder if I am. Not Hong Kong, but China. But anyway, I think I think I might be losing my English lurker tag. Oh, Michael Moore, you definitely are. You are not my only English lurker. I've noticed a high percentage of English viewers who are lurkers. I don't know if it's a national characteristic or not. They pop up in my email and say, hi, I just thought I'd say hi. I'm a lurker. I'm going back to lurking now. It seems to me that a lot of people who are from England do that. So, maybe you just think it's good manners not to bark up in the comment section. Let's see here. Orthia NZ says, why are ebooks so expensive? Pure greed. Pure greed. Was the cost of the book so low to begin with compared to the other expenses that have to be paid for? What needs to change, do you think? Two things need to change, and I'm not the only person to say this. Sarah at Steeped in Books will often depart from her happy chatting with her fans to level a stern gaze at publishers and tell them off. Olive at a Book Olive will do the same thing. Two things need to change. One is prices. The prices are ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. $2. If the people in publishing are going to say, and I've heard them say this, 20 years ago they were saying this, if the people in publishing are going to say, well, if we made this new book $2 for the ebook and $30 for the hardcover, no one would buy the hardcover, then you have a problem, and it's not that the that the ebook's price is too low. Okay, it's not that. And also the digital rights management has to change. You have to own the book. You have to be able to give it to somebody. You have to be able to resell the electronic file. Something needs to happen to make that possible. Leasing them the way they are now, most ebooks now that you buy, you're only leasing. They can be removed from your device, and that can't be right. That cannot stay true. And I don't think either one of those things are going to change. I wish that if those things had changed, ebooks would have been a thriving market, full of innovation, full of fans. When the coronavirus struck, and maybe the publishing industry wouldn't be reeling quite so much the way it is now. Let's see here. Anthony Supa says, do you know how to read music? Only a bit. Can you play any musical instruments? No. Jonathan Noel says, do you think Hilary Mantel will be the first person to win the Booker 3 times? She should. She should. But she won't. In my opinion, it'll be a politically correct thing, and it'll be a politically correct choice. It'll be a book that is noticeably not as good as The Mirror and the Light. Noticeably not as good. But where the person, the author, will tick diversity boxes. I'd be willing to bet that that will happen, and that the Booker won't want to be predictable, and they won't want what they perceive as outrage by giving it to a third time in a row to a white woman. I think it's going to be dumb. I'm going to try not to get all excited about it either way, because getting all worked up about prizes, is, especially now in virtue signaling 21st century, is kind of a waste of time. Eleni Nicolina asks, how are we doing here? Oh my, oh goodness gracious. All right, we're going to move on to Eleni next time. We're going to stop this. I'll come right back.